will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. How majestic is your name in all the earth. We behold the rising sun, the earth awakes, your hope is come, we look to you, we long for you, oh Lord. We behold the breaking dawn, the light that shines over everyone. We look to you, we long for you, oh Lord. We sing out, and oh, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. We behold the fallen rain, waters rise.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's special Ridley webinar on easy steps to staying fit and healthy, especially during this time of COVID-19. And again, for us in Melbourne, we're going back into lockdown. My name is Wayne, and I'm the digital content producer here at Ridley College. And with me tonight is a Ridley student who will be sharing with us some of her thoughts around health and fitness. And it is none other than our very own Ridley student, Stephanie McDonald. Hey, Steph.
Hey, Wayne.
How you doing?
Great.
You
Good.
doing good?
I am.
That's great. Steph, for most of us who might not know who you are or what you do, could you just maybe give us a bit of a background? Who are you, where you came from, and how did you end up at Ridley?
Like, how far back should I go?
Oh man, not like we don't want to know when you were born and all this other thing, but you know,
No, okay.
as far as you think it's relevant.
Well, before I started studying theology, I studied exercise and sports science at RMIT. I ended up deferring from that to study theology, but from there I became a personal trainer and an allied health assistant. Worked in gyms, doing classes and one-on-one, PT, writing programs for people, helping with injury rehabilitation and with caring for people with sicknesses and neurological conditions through exercise. And now I'm studying theology and loving it.
So how long did you work as a personal trainer?
I started in 2015, I think.
How long? So 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Towards the end of 2015.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Before that, I played soccer for most of my life. So I was always kind of sporty.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, soccer. Good game.
Speaking of which, the female soccer
Yeah.
World
Australia.
Championship, is that right?
It's in Australia.
Far out.
It's so exciting.
You must be excited.
I am very. I mean, I don't watch soccer, but I do
Yeah.
like for World Cups and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I do, and I'm super keen for that.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm
keen as well.
I never thought that
Yeah.
we would get like a World Cup, women's or men's World
Yeah.
Cup in Australia
How often does it happen?
every 4 years.
Okay, so it's like the Olympics. It's pretty. Yes, so it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a pretty big deal.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Okay, I'm good.
So, what led you to Ridley College? I mean, like, from sports to being a theology student. It's not, it's quite different. It's a very unusual path. It's not one that we hear very often. How do you end up being a student here at Ridley?
Yeah, one of my favorite things after I started studying at Ridley was when PT clients would be like, "Oh, so what do you study?" And I'd be like, "Theology," and they'd be like, "Oh, okay." How did that happen? I don't really know. I had to defer from my course because of an injury. And in that year, I was praying a lot about who I was, what I wanted to do, what kind of ministry I wanted to go into. And I realized that, before going into sports science, I had always wanted to go into ministry. And it was kind of a little bit of an insecurity in who I was and in what I was doing in the world and, what I was giving back to the economy.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds, that kind of led me to studying exercise science. And so it was a lot of undoing that and kind of realizing that for whatever I was going to do going forward, I needed to be trained well.
Okay.
I needed to have a strong defense for my faith, like Paul writes about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn a lot more about women in the church and in God's kingdom. That was a very sore point for me growing up.
Okay.
I didn't know how to read the Bible, so
Yeah.
reading some of the things that are written about women was very confronting. So I wanted to study somewhere that I knew would challenge me and help me to grow and develop.
Yeah. You enjoying it so far?
Yes. I love it at Ridley. I
Yeah.
love studying theology. I don't like reading a lot, but apart from that, I love it.
But that's part of the challenge, isn't it, to grow and
Yeah.
to expand you.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I'm very interested in this topic. Like, it's a topic I've been thinking a lot for a long time. In fact, quite a number of years ago, I read an article from a very well-known Christian leader in the evangelical circle. I can't quite quote him because I tried to find the article, but I couldn't find it. So I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm spot on with my memory. And he basically wrote about how health and fitness is something that a lot of Christians and Christian leaders don't actually think about. But if you put two and two together, taking care of your health is so important because how we function in our day-to-day life, in our work, and our vocation, really the effectiveness of our work is dependent on our health. So, I mean, that makes logical sense. Like, if we're healthy, we can accomplish more in a day. Where our minds are a lot clearer. We can think more straight. Yada yada, all that sort of thing. So, if we want to be good stewards of our time, we want to be good workers for the gospel here and now in this age, then it stems to reason that health and fitness is important. But that's just me. I'm not qualified. I'm sure you having good grounding in both theology and training in health and fitness. What's your take on like a theology of health and fitness for Christians?
Yeah, there are a few reasons why I believe it's really important for Christians to take care of themselves, their health and their fitness. One of those is exactly for what you touched on, especially, no, not even as vocational leaders, just being a Christian entails being in ministry wherever you are. And so if you want to do what you're doing for the glory of God and you want to be effective in what you're doing and yeah, honor the role that God has given you in this world and in his kingdom, then you want to be doing it as best as you physically can. And that involves being fit and active and not being sick all the time, not getting injured because you didn't take care of your body. And it also involves good mental health, which, exercise is not, it doesn't cure mental conditions or mental illness, but it is a massive preventer for things like depression and anxiety.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. One of the things that psychologists will encourage their patients to do is to start exercising more regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. So if
it's a major contributor, or it's one of the contributors? Or?
it's very effective to stave off.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of because it like you said, like it increases productivity, brain function. It also releases endorphins, which, if you've ever had a block of chocolate and you felt great afterwards, exercise does that too.
I feel bad after a block of chocolate.
You have to be a certain kind of person.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough.
So if you think about church ministry, if I'm a pastor in a church and I'm constantly getting sick or because of stress, I'm burning out, or I'm injured, and so I can't do pastoral visits. I can't take care of my flock to the best of my ability. Then that actually falls back on me in terms of, have I actually stewarded this responsibility well? There is another big reason why I believe that Christians should take care of their health and fitness, and that is because it's also honoring who we are as humans. A lot of scholars are now recognizing in the past 50 years, and before that as well, that the concept of the image of God has something to do with the physicality of being a human being. That's not the whole thing. Like, being in the image of God is a very ambiguous topic, and there's a lot involved with it. But looking at the exegesis of the biblical passages related to it, they've kind of noticed that you can't separate the human body from the image of God. And so if we want to respect God and value what he values, then we have to respect our bodies and respect our health and value and honor that with our time and with how we live.
Yeah, that's great. So why do you think it's so hard for people to take?
Oh wait, sorry. Can we go back to the
the
last question? Sorry. One thing that I'm really keen about as well is you can't be spiritually disciplined if you're not physically disciplined. Like, it's
whoa. Okay. Can you unpack that?
That's like a big claim.
A
I know.
big call.
Yeah. So I am prepared to defend this.
I'm giving you the chance.
So as a Christian and a personal trainer, I like in exercise sessions, I have pushed myself to my physical limits. Like, I've made myself throw up before. That's not, don't make yourself throw up when you exercise. It was accidental, and it was because I was doing sprint training, which is awful. But, physical limitations. And it's horrible, and you get run down, and, it hurts. But spiritual discipline is so much harder. It's way harder than physical discipline. It's harder because you can't see it, you can't necessarily feel it all the time. It's kind of a mystery, and it's constant. You have to constantly be on top of what you're looking at, what you're thinking about, what you're agreeing with and accepting. And so you can't, if you can't even discipline yourself physically, I don't think that you will be able to be as disciplined as Christians should be spiritually. And also, Paul writes about in 1 Corinthians 9, verse 27, he kind of creates an analogy between, he's using an analogy of physical discipline of the body to encourage people to be spiritually disciplined. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's a lot that relates to physical and spiritual discipline. They intertwine a lot. And even a lot of what we're going to be talking about in terms of exercise today can really be applied to just the spiritual life and to Christian discipleship.
Okay, that's interesting. Looking forward to hearing more as we unpack. So back to my previous question. So why, and I think this is a fair one, like why do you think it's like staying fit is just so difficult for some people, like, and for others it's just not on their radar at all, like, yeah.
Look, a lot of personal trainers would jump straight to the throwaway line, oh, it's because you're lazy. And I think that's actually a really unhelpful and really just negative and oversimplified way of looking at it. Lazy, some people are, they're not fit because they're lazy.
Okay.
But that would entail like the ability and the knowledge to exercise and to be fit. Like if I'm not exercising regularly, it's because I'm being lazy. But that's because I know how to exercise. I'm motivated properly, and I have the ability to exercise. There's a lot of psychology. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to try to unpack that, but there is a lot of psychology behind why someone isn't motivated to exercise. I've met a lot of people who are just too afraid to exercise because they don't know what they're doing, and they're afraid of hurting themselves or they're afraid of being laughed at. And I've met a lot of overweight or just really unhealthy and unfit people who are afraid to exercise because they're already ashamed of themselves, or they're embarrassed about what their body looks like or what they can't do, and they don't want other people to kind of confirm that embarrassment or that shame.
So in short, basically, the reasons why people find it hard to exercise is not simple. Like there's a multitude of different reasons that we can't just say, oh, you're just lazy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say the number one reason that people don't, or at least Christians don't exercise, is because we don't have the right motivation to exercise. That's the biggest thing.
We don't have the right motivation to exercise.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that by saying that there is a right motivation.
There is a right motivation.
Okay.
And once you sort out your motivations, things will start to flow a little bit easier. So, I mean, and this is one of many examples, but the world kind of prizes looking good, right? And
sure,
there are still some Christians who prize looking good, which you do you. But generally Christians will kind of be like, oh, well, that's the world. I don't need to look good. I don't need to worry about what I look like because I don't want to be glorified in my looks. Paul talks about, being beautiful in modesty.
Yeah.
So that will lead to a lack of motivation to exercise because they kind of they connect exercise with looking good. So like, I don't need to look good, so I don't need to exercise. And some people just don't believe that exercise has any role in Christian discipleship. And so they want to focus on what they do believe is involved in Christian discipleship. And that's fair enough if they haven't thought about that before.
Sure.
But when you start to look at your motivation for exercise as a Christian, is the fact that I'm stewarding the gift that God has given me. I'm honoring God's image in me. I'm honoring and respecting the role that He's given me in society and in ministry. And I had another reason. It just dropped out of my mind.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So Am I right to say that what you're basically saying is that there is, for Christians, there is a right, well, actually, for all human beings, there is a right motivation for exercise, but for Christians, is there a more specific right motivation for Christians?
Yes. And that is to exercise because I love God,
Yeah,
essentially.
sure.
Exercise because I love Jesus and
Yeah,
I want to make him known in this world to the best of my
yeah,
ability.
yeah. So you want to be an effective gospel worker. You want to be, the best you can be to proclaim the kingdom of Christ
Yep.
to
And
the ends of the earth,
yeah,
that sort of thing.
yeah. And obviously you wanna respect God's creation as
Sure.
well.
So would you say like, this motivation, is it foundational to all exercises?
Yes, yeah, I would say that. Or at least the right motivation for anyone, not just Christians, is the underlying factor as to whether or not you will continue to exercise and you will
Mm,
continue to take care of yourself.
okay, okay. That's great. So I should also mention at this stage that we are taking questions for Steph. So if you've got a burning question about health and fitness or anything else that's related to health and fitness for Steph, pop your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen in the panel, not in the chat, but in the Q&A section, and we will take those questions towards the end of the section, and we'll ask Steph those questions. You just sanitize your hands?
Oh, yeah, I touched my face.
Okay, I probably should do that as well.
We are
Good
safe.
habits. Okay, so all right. After sanitizing our hands, after talking about motivation, what's next?
Um, what's next is there is a process to beginning to exercise. Obviously, you wanna figure out your motivation, pray about it, uh, and after that, you kind of plan out, for lack of better description.
Plan out.
Yeah, I know
What?
it's
I
in the
don't know time
sense
for planning out.
that there is a structure, right? So
Okay.
if you just go straight into like, yeah, I want to be healthy because that's good for the kingdom,
Yeah.
and I want to love
Yep.
Jesus in this way. So you just launch into exercise spontaneously.
Yep.
You're gonna die out because you
Okay.
don't have a goal, you
Yeah.
don't have a routine or a regime.
Yep.
You don't really know what to do or how to do it.
Yeah.
So you kind of need to actually think about these things, and it's not that hard. Like
So what does it look like? Like,
it looks like, well, first of all, you need to think about how does exercise fit into my life.
Yeah.
So for people with a really busy schedule, time is not an excuse for not exercising. By the way, it's like you can exercise. Like I think 3 half-an-hour sessions a week amounts to 1% of your week or something like that.
okay.
Like it's, you have time to exercise. You're just not making time to exercise. So you need to plan out when I can. Can I exercise for an hour or should I cut it up into 20-minute sessions, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week? You need to start small and then think about, okay, what am I going to do when I exercise?
Yeah.
What do I need to do? What does my body need to work on? Do I need to be more fit in terms of my cardiovascular system, which is basically just your heart and lung healthiness,
Yeah.
or do I need to work on my strength, which is an important factor. Strength and muscular endurance are really important for human health. So that shouldn't be looked over. I know a lot of women, especially, think, yeah, I'm gonna fit. I'm gonna get fit. I'm gonna exercise, and they just go for runs. And
Oh,
running,
I do that.
yeah.
I just want to sweat it,
Yeah, sweat it
But
out.
apparently, yeah, okay.
It's great. Running is good.
Yeah.
Um, cardio exercise in general is good. Bike riding is great,
Yeah.
but you need to work on your muscles because if you just run and run and run, you're going to get injured. Your joints won't have the muscles to support them, and especially as you get older in
Yeah.
life, you're going to be at higher risk of fractures, which is fractures is
Yeah,
something that
yeah.
you don't want in the
Yeah.
older generation.
Yeah.
and you're going to be at higher risk of diabetes, of cancer, of osteoporosis, of rheumatoid arthritis, etc., etc. So
it's pretty much everything my folks are. But it's true. Like my dad had, he's ran and ran for all his life because he just thought that that's the thing you do, right?
Yeah.
But apparently not, and he's paying, well, sort of paying the price for it. He can't actually run. In the last year, he injured himself. He can't run. He can't even swim now, and it's all due to because he's not actually paid attention to developing those muscle groups. Is that correct? Like
yeah.
Okay.
And that can be really hard as well for someone who has exercised for a long time in their life, but they've only been doing running or some kind of cardio. Excuse me, sorry. And
That's
then they get injured, and then they have to stop all exercise. That can really impact their health, their mental health, and their physical health.
Yeah.
So you do want to look at what kind of exercise you're doing and include, maybe running or walking or bike riding, but also think about, okay, how am I going to be moving my body, all of my body? How am I going to be working my muscles? And you don't need to go to the gym. You don't need to be like a bodybuilder to work your muscles. It's just everyday things like, walking upstairs is kind of, it works your leg muscles.
Really?
Yeah. Walking upstairs is great.
Okay.
I mean, not 3 steps and then...
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
Yeah, but
I didn't know that.
a lot of gyms have stair climbers now.
Okay.
Because it is both cardio and a leg workout. So...
Oh.
Yeah. So thinking about, what I need to try and move my whole body.
Yeah.
Running is moving my legs, my lower legs, and it's kind of working my heart. I'm getting out of breath.
Yeah.
But what am I doing that's actually making my muscles work?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to be too, too.
We're friends here.
Okay. I don't mean this to come off the wrong way, but have you ever found, like, when we talk about, so you're talking about muscle building, muscle training, is that also, has there been a preference from a gender point of view? Like I mean, I know guys who are like, yeah, sure, like I'll lift dumbbells or whatever.
Yeah.
But is that something that maybe like for women it's a bit harder to get around, or?
Yes. Thank you for bringing this up. Women can lift weights, and women absolutely should lift weights. Like not just because I'm kind of a feminist, but also
Wasn't going there, but
also because women are at much higher risk of falls in older age, and then of fracturing their hip, and
really,
health professionals will know that if an older lady fractures her hip, it's kind of like it's very bleak outlook most of the time.
Yeah.
Women are also at higher risk of osteoporosis. And just of fractures in general, higher risk of kind of muscle injury as we get older.
Yeah.
And breast cancer and things like that.
Yeah.
And lifting weights can prevent all of that. I'm not saying that it will 100%, life is still life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the benefits of weightlifting for women are just amazing, and I really want women to start lifting weights. If it's not in the gym, then in your home. It doesn't have to be for show. But it's so important. It's so important.
But you're not saying like women need to start having these like huge biceps and pecs and
yeah.
But what you're saying is that you must pay attention to building muscles to as a holistic part of exercising and not just running.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to reassure women as well. Lifting weights will not give you huge muscles.
Really?
Women have to work so much harder than men to build muscle.
Oh, okay.
In the way that we just don't build muscle the same way. Men, your hormones are different. Your muscle fibers is a different distribution. It's very different.
Yep.
Women can, I mean, if you want to be a bodybuilder, like, come see me. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd totally be on board with that. But especially women with high metabolism, like I tried for like 2 years to put on muscle, and it was the hardest thing.
Right.
So yeah, don't be afraid of
Okay.
getting bulky. You won't, and
Yeah.
don't be afraid of what others will think of. If you don't know what you're doing in terms of lifting weights, there is YouTube, there's Google, which
Yeah.
is all great.
Yeah.
You can find a personal trainer, you can find a gym instructor.
Yeah.
But even just Google stuff, start to get into it, and
Yeah.
don't think about what others are thinking about you. That's the biggest thing.
Totally. So would you say like, I mean, I'm just trying to think out loud here. Like, would something like Pilates be resistant? Well, muscle building, because it works on your core muscles, right? Like, is that
Yes. Yep. Individual preference. Pilates is great for people who need a starting point. But if you only do Pilates, like you eventually got to get off the floor, right? That's
yeah?
it's, all my most of my colleagues, when you talk about Pilates with them, they're like, yeah, Pilates is great, but eventually, like, you got to move on from the milk to the meat.
Yeah.
You've got to start exercising off the floor. But it's still fantastic. You shouldn't. Yeah, Pilates is great, but it's just one.
It's just crawling, and then you've got to learn how to walk, and then how you run after that kind of thing.
Yeah. Although I will say, core strength is really important.
Sure.
That's kind of like the foundation.
Yeah.
Of Jesus is the foundation of Christianity.
Yeah,
Core strength is the foundation of exercise.
Fair enough.
And Pilates is fantastic at teaching, because most of our generation, because we sit so much, our core just switches off.
Yeah.
And it took me a year of being a personal trainer, and even more than that, to really start to figure out, okay, this is how I brace my core. This is how I work it. This is how I work the different core muscles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. We do need to move on, but before that, can I just check with our tech guy? I noticed in the chat that Steph's microphone was a bit soft. Is she okay? Okay, she's good. All right. So there's one topic that I think is, I think everybody knows that this is very important, and that's diet.
Yes.
Like, I think it's just, I hope it's general knowledge that, with health and fitness, diet plays a huge percentage, and I guess more so than than exercising itself. Well, so one of the things that comes to my mind when I think about diet is that we live in an age where there's just so many variations of what types of diets, and some of you guys probably heard it in the promo. Like, I've heard friends talk about keto diet, and then there's paleo diet, and there's just all these other names that just honestly confuses me. And like, I love my food. I don't want to give them up. I don't think I should give them up. So, could you speak to that? Like, what's the role of diet, or can you debunk some of the myths that we're currently hearing that's just flying around?
Yeah. The first thing I'll say is that everybody's different. Everybody responds to different diets differently. So what works for one person, like I do know someone who lives on the keto diet. I will get onto that specifically a bit later, but it works for her. She's healthy, she's active, she has meal plans and everything, and that's just what she does.
Yeah.
Me, even if keto did work like that for me, which it wouldn't, I like food. I like.
Amen.
Yeah, right. Like, I like chocolate.
Preach it, sister.
Yeah, so it's kind of everybody has different preferences, has different needs, and if you have allergies and stuff like that, please go and see a dietitian or a nutritionist, because that's important. The first thing to debunk about diet is, like, people automatically kind of get anxious when you say the word diet, because they're like, oh my goodness, we're going to have to talk about clean eating. And when we talk about diet, we're not talking about a list of rules that you can and can't do. We're talking about what you are currently eating. And a healthy diet is not any particular diet. A healthy diet is a balanced diet. Getting the 5 food groups, listening to general health guidelines, which you can Google. There's, like, on the government website. Yeah, diet does play a huge role in health.
But you're saying that it's not a blanket rule for everyone.
No.
Because I tried the keto diet. It's like, man, this thing's not working at all.
Yeah. So.
But I noticed that the most effective thing for me to lose weight was just eating lots of cereal in the morning and eating nuts and berries and just drinking lots of water. I lost a lot of weight actually. But keto diet, and like I had friends who were like, oh man, you gotta try this, you gotta try this.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about keto. let's.
We're not picking anyone out there. It's just that that's my experience.
Like I said,
plus paleo diet as well.
Oh, paleo's worse. Yeah. No, like I said, I do know people who love the keto diet and it works for them. That's great. Most people should not be on keto. And if you are on keto, you need to do it with a qualified dietitian, because it's a very complex diet.
Okay.
And, you know, it came about through bodybuilders, right? Like
Yeah.
bodybuilders were, and these are people who exercise for a living.
Yeah.
Their whole lives are devoted to this.
Yeah.
They're looking at, you know, micronutrients.
Yeah.
You need to do it with someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're not set on it, I would encourage you to not do it because keto it's great for people who are morbidly obese, and who just need to start that weight loss journey, but it's not sustainable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there are people who are really overweight and who might just, you know, they don't know where to start. They might start with keto.
Yeah. Okay.
And that'll work for them, but eventually their dietitian will phase them off that because it's not sustainable.
Sure.
And especially for people who exercise and who lift weights, you need carbs, right? You need carbs for recovery. You need carbs to lift weights. You need carbs to run faster than a very slow pace.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just don't think that. And the paleo is the same. Like, you know, I do know people who lost heaps of weight on paleo, but that's all it is. It's just weight loss. They're not actually thinking about what's good for my body, what's strengthening my body. Like I knew a couple who went on paleo and found that they were just getting injured all the time, and I was kind of like,
is that right? Okay.
Yeah, and they wouldn't listen to me. But yeah, so you know, try paleo or keto or just whatever other like intermittent fasting if you're really really keen.
But be cautious of it. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, be
sorry,
cautious.
I don't want to mansplain it. Sorry.
And thank you, Wayne. Appreciate it. And also, you know, just think about. Don't think about going on a diet. Think about changing your diet. So there was this phrase that the government came up with a few years ago called swapping, not stopping. So it's the idea of swapping something out rather than stop eating or cutting it out completely.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that I dealt with a few years ago was people just addicted to soft drinks, and they don't know. Oh man, dinner is coming back up. They had no idea how to, because like sugar is like a drug, literally like a drug. It does crazy things to your body. They could not get off soft drinks. So the idea is to swap maybe 2 of your drinks a week with fruit juice instead, or maybe Gatorade or something. It's still not great, but it's better than soft drink.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll work. You
slow down.
Yeah, so that all the times that you're drinking soft drink are now fruit juice or Gatorade, and then eventually you'll swap that once or twice a week to water.
Right.
And then so it's a process of just swapping what you're eating.
Yeah.
For healthier alternatives.
So it basically comes back to what you were saying about that you got to set realistic goals. So not just in exercising, but diet as well. Like, don't just, you know, all of a sudden jump, like, I don't know, like if you're addicted to, because when you talk about drinks, I'm just thinking like, oh man, bubble tea, like how am I going to swap that out? But you're saying if I'm like, let's just say I'm addicted to bubble tea and I drink like 5 cups of bubble tea. Hypothetically, I mean, I looked apart, but I drink 5 cups of bubble tea a day and I don't just, you know, immediately get off that, maybe substitute it with something, maybe reduce it, and slowly but surely and progressively move towards something that's healthier.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly right. And another thing that people should know about as well is the glycemic index.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
So when you hear terms like this is high GI or this is low GI, the GI is the glycemic index, which is basically just a scale telling you how much sugar or what kind of sugar is in a certain food.
Okay.
So there is high, middle, and low GI. And typically you want to try to swap high GI foods out for middle to low GI foods. Not all the time, because,
Okay.
you know, fruit is technically high GI and we need fruit.
Yeah.
But also like a cheeseburger would be really high on the
Okay.
glycemic index scale, because it's a lot of sugar and a lot of simple carbs. So, and to kind of help people, to help explain what that does to your body,
Whoa!
I've got
That's what it's
my
there for.
graph. Yes. So I need my markers. Sorry. Oh,
We're
no.
getting a shot of this?
I'm so used to doing this on a pen and paper in a consult room. Okay. So, say you are hungry here at the bottom axis. Axis? I'm not a mathematician. I'm
Off
a
the chart.
theologian. You're off the chart.
Yeah.
You're hungry. This is where you eat. This is where you eat.
So you're starving there.
Yep.
Okay.
If you eat something high GI, what's going to happen to your blood sugar is it's going to spike up and then you're going to crash. And what's going to happen is eventually you're going to end up worse off than what you were when you...
Oh, okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you need to fill up really quickly,
Yeah.
then you might have something high GI,
Yeah.
like, you know, potato is high
Oh, okay.
GI.
Okay.
Yep.
Banana, would that be?
Banana's kind of middle
Okay.
GI, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, similar
Yeah.
type thing. Then that's fine, but you want to couple it with low GI as well. So, this is,
Oh,
thank you. I respect teachers so much. Okay.
I'd help you, but
This is
we've got a
tricky.
social distance.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, don't come in my bubble. If you eat something high GI, sorry, low GI, we're on low GI. If you
Yeah,
eat something
okay.
low GI, what's going to happen is it'll take much longer for you to start to feel full, but then that will sustain you for a lot longer
Right.
and you won't crash. It'll be a slow kind of descent back to hunger.
Okay.
So ideally, especially if you've just done physical activity or, you know, it's your first meal of the day, it's great to have something both high GI and low GI so that you can kind of get full quickly, but then also have that.
Like in the same meal.
Yeah, yep, in the same
Okay.
meal. Yep,
Okay.
yeah.
So what's an example of like a, I don't know, like a high GI and a low GI? Like if I wake up in the morning, I need breakfast
Put
to
on
start the
makeup.
day.
Yep.
Like can you give me some examples of what's good high GI and low GI to
Yes,
start the day?
I can. If
Okay.
you give me a second to think. Okay, so Wheat Bix and Wheaties, oh, good old Wheaties, my dad's favorite. They're both low GI, so complex carbs. They will sustain you for longer during the day.
Oh, okay.
But say if you have a piece of fruit with that, if you have an apple before cereal,
Yeah.
or you know, or even a banana
Yeah.
or something like that, or fruit juice,
Yeah.
that kind of gets both in there. You get
Okay.
that
Okay.
that sugar hit,
Okay.
good sugar hit.
Yeah.
But then you've also got the carbs behind that to keep you going.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
What about rice?
Yeah, so rice is actually, sorry, I don't know why I didn't think about that. Thank you. White rice is high GI, brown rice is low GI.
So if I mix
generally.
the white and brown together, that gets me. Is that how it works?
I mean, just have one rice. But try to eat brown rice more regularly.
Yep. Sure.
Unless you're active. If you're really active, then, you know, white rice is fine. There's actually more protein in white rice.
Yep.
But brown rice generally is healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Also, stay away from white bread. Basically, white foods.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know.
What?
I know. Sorry. White bread is not great. It's very high GI, not great for you, very high in cholesterol. Rye bread, multigrain bread, brown bread is a lot better for you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Wayne. I know.
It's all right.
No more white
At least
cherry
rice
bread.
is still in the mix. That's important. Okay, so we've got to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about motivation, goals, diet. Now, what's the application? Like, what can I do to move my body? And especially given the context we're in lockdown, we're stuck at home. You know, maybe some of us might not even want to go out for an exercise, even though technically we're still allowed. What can I do to stay fit and healthy, especially in lockdown?
Yeah. It's a hard one, obviously, especially people who, were going to the gyms. Now we can't go to the gym anymore, and it's, that's rough. I would really encourage you to do whatever you can to exercise, because it is going to sustain your mental well-being as well as your physical health. And it's also going to actually increase your immunity. So if you're afraid of getting COVID-19 or the flu, it's, again, not a promise. There are very fit and strong people who have unfortunately passed away because of coronavirus. But, exercise does improve your immunity and just your strength to be able to get through sickness. What you can do is, if you haven't had a regular exercise schedule, if you're just getting into it now, walking, I would encourage you to walk, not slow walking, kind of like a brisk pace, but walking is great. It's really underrated. It is actually a great exercise, but you just kind of have to walk for more than half an hour, ideally for an hour or more. But that, especially out in fresh air, that it just kind of, it gets you moving, it clears your mind. It's really good for you. If you're keeping a brisk pace, especially, that's really good cardio activity. You can go for jogs and go running, if you're already used to that. But I would encourage you, if you're just kind of starting to exercise during the lockdown, start small. Walking is great. And things like climbing stairs. If you're a theology student, lifting textbooks. I've got my good old evangelical dictionary of theology.
Or you could live in a townhouse like me, 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
Boy, man.
Yeah. If you have stairs, seriously, walking up and down the stairs every day might feel weird. Just chuck your headphones in. Carry your big,
do your laundry.
Evangelical dictionary of theology textbook with you as you're walking up and down the stairs, because that'll weigh you down, but it'll also make you look like you're actually doing something. Yeah.
You sound like you speak from experience.
We've got stairs at Baker Flats. Stairs are great. Things like, doing push-ups, if you have the ability to do push-ups. A lot of women struggle to do push-ups. Incline push-ups, like against a wall or your desk, is great. Stretching, foam rolling is really important, because during lockdown, we're sitting so much more than what we would be. Everything is at home. We're watching computer screens all the time. Sitting is really bad for us, for a number of reasons, mostly because it puts a lot of strain on our lower back. So stretching is really important. If you don't know what a foam roller is, here's
you
what
brought
I
one.
prepared earlier. This is a foam roller. You can get bigger ones. This is kind of the size that I choose.
Sorry, just remember speaking to the mic.
Sorry.
Just in case.
There are bigger ones. This is all right for me. And the basic concept is to self-massage with the foam roller. It can be quite painful if you're not used to it, but there are ways around it. YouTube, Google.
So that's just to stretch the muscles and...
To stretch the muscles, yeah. The concept is, we don't need the concept. That's getting too technical. But yeah, and spiky balls as well.
Spiky balls?
Spiky balls.
What do you do with that?
It looks like a torture device, and it low-key is. This is to help release muscle tension. I use this especially for my back muscles, my shoulder muscles, because if your muscles are tight, and then you push on them, it kind of tightens them even more. And then the body, the brain sends messages to the muscles saying, we've got to loosen up, otherwise something's going to break. So that's kind of what you're doing when you're pressing a spiky ball against your muscles. Yeah, chest muscles, leg muscles, calf muscles. Those are leg muscles. Yeah, they're great. You can get them for like $5 at Kmart.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and foam rollers, I'm pretty sure Kmart and Big W sell foam rollers now.
Yeah.
Kmart's great. I don't know ethically if
Sure.
they're fantastic, but
Yeah.
for lockdown.
So, what about things like high interval? What was it? High interval training
High
technique?
intensity interval
Sorry,
training.
high intensity
Yeah.
training, because that's like, so that's long for HIIT, and for some of you, you might have heard of that terminology, HIIT workout. Like there's a lot of HIIT workout online on YouTube. What do you think of that? Is that effective?
Yeah. So
Because that doesn't require a lot of space as well.
interval training is my niche.
Oh,
So
wow, okay.
I just want to say that ahead of time so that people understand that I know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Most people, they think they're doing HIIT and they're actually not. So high intensity interval training is designed for athletes, right? Because it's designed to work you at a really high rate,
Yep.
give you a long rest. So like sprint training, like what I was talking about before,
Yeah.
made me throw up afterwards, because it's high intensity. There are other forms of interval training which are also good. Interval training generally is just really great for the body, but lower intervals you won't see the benefits. So like HIIT training, real HIIT training is great for weight loss, great for power, for muscular strength. Most people go to like a HIIT class and they don't see those benefits and they're like, oh, well, HIIT didn't work for me.
Yeah.
That's because you're not, sorry, you're not doing real HIIT, you're doing kind of a variation of interval training.
Okay.
So do interval training. Don't expect to see such huge and fast results like the internet will tell you.
Just define for some of us who might not know, what would you classify as an interval training?
Yeah, so interval training is where you work for a set period of time and then you rest.
Okay.
So if we're thinking about it in terms of running, I might run for 1 minute and rest for 30 seconds. That's actually a short interval because the interval of rest is shorter than the amount that I'm running.
Yeah.
So high intensity interval training, that concept is that you're working as hard as you possibly can for like 10 seconds, because really the body can only maintain that work effort for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you're giving yourself a nice long rest.
Yep.
The ratio is generally like 1 to 10. So if I'm working for 10 seconds, I'll give myself a minute's break.
Yeah.
And then I'm back on it on that second. I'm working as hard as I can for 10 seconds. Minutes break. It's great to get it because you can't maintain that for a long time. So you can do a really good HIIT workout in the span of like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're done for the day.
Right.
So that for that reason, it's great. But for people who aren't strong, don't have strong muscles, their joints, their core isn't strong, especially. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
High intensity interval training is not ideal because you're likely to get injured.
Right. Okay.
That doesn't mean that you can't do middle interval training. So like you work and rest for the same amount of time.
Okay.
Or you work at a slower pace and then give yourself a shorter rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously there needs to be a bit of education around it, not what you kind of read all here on YouTube.
Half the reason that people struggle with fitness or that they've been disillusioned or kind of annoyed that it didn't seem to work for them is the fitness industry. I apologize as a personal trainer for the fitness industry. The marketing, the magazines, the Instagram pages, it's all just, first of all, soft pornography, basically. It's really bad for body image. And secondly, it's just unrealistic expectations. And thirdly, it's just misinformation, a lot of it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not to say that there isn't the right information out there. You just kind of have to be
more discerning about it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We do have to move on, and we're going to move into the Q&A section now. But just hold on to that thought about HIIT training, because we do have a question from someone regarding that. But if you've got questions for Stephanie, now's the time to put them into the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom window. And first question, and we'll try and move through them quite quickly because there is actually a number of questions that came through. So, keeping HIIT training in mind, this question comes from Marion, who asks, can you give me more details about doing HIIT timing for a woman in her mid-60s for trimming off some abdominal fat?
Yes. Marion, I used to know there was Marion in her mid-60s at my old gym. Maybe it's the same one. If so, hi. So keeping in mind what I said about HIIT training, if you're already fit and strong, then that's, HIIT training might be an option. You might do that preferably like on a bike or a rower. So it's not, running is very high impact on joints. Unfortunately, once we kind of, in the exercise world, once you pass 30, you're basically dying.
Thank you. Wow.
So anyone kind of past the age of 50, we're wary that you don't want to be doing too much impact on the joints. So if you're wanting to do HIIT training, I'd recommend getting on a bike, either an exercise bike or a real bike, or a rowing machine. Rowing machines are great. If you're going to spend money on a machine, get a rowing machine. And do those, so work really hard. So either pedal really fast or maybe at a really high gear for 10 seconds and then for a minute, nice and gentle and soft. However, and I'm sorry to burst a lot of bubbles right now, women's bodies are designed to hold that little bit of fat at the tummy. It's not what we want to hear, but if you have a little bit, like if you're just generally, you're good with your body, but you just have that little bit of flab in your tummy, it means you're a woman. Like that's
Amen. No, sorry.
Too much support, Wayne.
Okay.
It's really hard for women to get rid of that tummy flab, especially if you're already fit. If you're not already fit, then there is room to kind of trim that down. But yeah, I'd kind of, as hard as it is to hear, and you probably hear it all the time from motivational speakers. Yeah, you do have to kind of learn to love your body, even if it's not what you want it to look like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Next question. This one's coming from Isaac. I believe you know Isaac.
Isaac.
And his question is, as a therapist in the health industry myself, I often come across the link between an individual's psychological mental health and their physical fitness. It is a big hurdle that some people struggle to get over when there is trauma, emotional baggage involved. That can demotivate them from making any progress in their physical health. Would Stephanie be able to help us understand this link with some of her own experiences? I think you sort of touched on that at the start of the webinar.
Yeah.
But do you want to take that question?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. In terms of my own experience, I kind of saw it backwards in terms of I was really fit. I played soccer. When I was 16, I had a really bad back injury, which kind of worsened over the years with improper care, and I wasn't seeing the right people. And it got to the point where I was going from exercising maybe 3-4 times a week to suddenly not being able to do anything. I could only walk. I couldn't even swim. I could walk in water, but I couldn't, I'd just walk. So in reversal, that kind of impacted me because then I was like, well, basically my mental health crashed, and it was a storm brewing for many, many years before that. But that was kind of a breaking point for me. And it happens a lot with athletes. If they get injured, they can't move anymore. And so from there, it was a case of I have to not only work with my physical trauma, because I have an injury that I do need to take care of and I need to do the right things with, but I can't use that as an excuse for not getting back into fitness. So you kind of have to work through the demotivation of, it's always with bad injuries, it's always like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
It can be super demotivating because you're like, I'm trying. I just want my body to be right. I just want it to be healthy. But I'm not seeing the progress. I'm putting so much effort and I'm not seeing the progress.
Yeah.
And that is, it's really hard. You almost can't do it on your own. Like, I was working in gym at that time, and I had great colleagues. You know, they were really supportive. Really, thank you. Really helpful. They had a lot of knowledge about injuries. So if I wasn't working at that place at that time, I don't know if I would have been able to motivate myself to kind of get back on the health wagon.
Yeah.
Psychologists, there are sports psychologists. I think general psychologists are also, you know, can kind of discern what's going on behind that as well.
Yeah.
But when there's trauma involved, either physical or mental or emotional trauma, you can't overcome it on your own, and don't try to.
Okay, so you need to get help and
You do.
professional help. And,
Yeah, yeah. Even if
okay.
it's like, for me, my professional help was my physio. Fantastic physio, really like linked me into the proper services. And he was someone recommended by my colleagues
Yeah.
who were also supportive of me, also really kind and patient.
Yeah.
So I had, you know, a team of people around me, and even then it was a struggle. So if you're someone who doesn't have that community, first of all, look for it. Churches are a great place to find that community. Church leaders, I would encourage you to be watchful over people who've been
Yeah.
injured or have sudden health changes.
Right.
But also get a health community around you. Get
Yeah.
a physio that's a good physio. Get a GP on board. Get a psychologist on board. And there are you know, bulk billing available for all these things if you're.
So there is a place for the church community to be involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, community in general is really important, and I think if spiritual healing comes with physical healing, it just makes a person so much more resilient and so much more actually healed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, we do have to move on. Let's try and keep the questions short because there's
Sorry.
quite a few. That's
I
all right.
Talk a lot.
We've got quite a few questions. So, this one's coming from Dennis, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly,
Yep.
or her name. Sorry.
His.
How should we plan our cardio and bodybuilding exercises together? What kind of nutritional diet, more protein or more carbohydrate, can we use for after and before the cardio and bodybuilding exercises? I am a 31-year-old male, 174 centimeters and 102 kilograms. I am trying to do cardio exercises. My heart rate is generally a little bit high, 160 to 170. What level of heart rate is good for someone who's trying to lose weight? That's a big question.
Well, I'm assuming his heart rate is that high when he's exercising.
I don't know. You're the expert.
All right. Yes, I'm going to assume that. Big question. Okay, I think way to answer this shortly. After you do a resistance training session, generally you want to get protein in fairly quickly afterwards. You want to be getting enough protein in your diet generally. That doesn't mean you need to drink 3 protein shakes a day. There is such thing as too much protein, and if you're having too much protein, essentially it gets converted back into fat. So don't go overboard with the protein, but after a weight session, in the first 10 minutes to half an hour, get some kind of protein in you. And then you also want to get some carbohydrates, and ideally some high GI carbohydrates after a weight session, because that'll help with recovery. After a cardio session, you don't really need to eat after a cardio session. I'm sorry to tell you that. But at least not immediately afterwards. You kind of just need to look at a balanced diet. Hydration is really key. Hydration is, sorry, I should have said this before. Hydration is like the most important aspect. Besides, you got core strength, and hydration is even more important than core strength. You need to be hydrated, even if you're not doing weightlifting.
And that's not just drinking coffee.
No, coffee is, if you drink coffee, you have to drink 2 more cups of water.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
because
goodness.
it actually dehydrates you. Yeah, cardio, staying hydrated. Still lots of carbohydrate. It depends what, I'm sorry, Dennis, I'd probably need to know what kind of cardio you're doing, what strength work you're doing, because you do need carbohydrates for cardio work, but it depends how long you're working and what kind of cardio you're doing. Yeah. Sorry, that's not super helpful. Protein, carbs.
Okay, I'm just currently looking through the list of questions. Some of them we have sort of answered. From an anonymous attendee, somebody asked, can you give some advice about portion sizes? It's a good question.
I can. Oh, I wish I had a plate with me. Generally, okay, so if you have a piece of meat in a meal, you're Australia, just the Western countries have just really, we don't do proportion well. If you're just a generally so bodybuilders, people who are working out 5 days a week need to eat more. Same with people who are doing cardio 5 days a week. But generally speaking, if you have a piece of meat in your meal, it should roughly, wait, which camera am I? This one?
That one.
Okay, yep, cool. It should roughly be about the size of your palm, not including your fingers. So that's a good, yeah, I know.
Oh, that's
sorry.
a nice size.
Yeah. It's kind of, and it's kind of proportionate too. If you're a bigger person, you'll have bigger hands, and so
I should eat more. Is that right?
that's one portion size in a meal. Meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Vegetables, the side that you have with your meat, don't just eat meat. If you're having vegetables or carbs with that, I think it's like a handful is the right portion size.
Yeah.
It's there are guidelines. If you Google, healthy portion sizes, there will be a government website that actually tells you, what food groups to aim for, how much food to have, and kind of what the right portion sizes will be.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So from another anonymous person, what would you recommend for someone who enjoys walking regularly at a brisk pace, as mentioned, but gets very worn out and sweaty within the first 15 to 20 minutes?
Keep at it, I guess.
He or she's doing the right thing.
Yeah, they are. They're doing the right thing. Brisk walking is it is tiring, especially because you don't just need good cardio, but you need good muscular endurance of your legs, because when you're brisk walking, you're kind of using your heels a lot more, which kind of tightens up your calves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That might be contributing. You might need to do some more leg strengthening exercises. And you might have tight muscles, which again, a spiky ball or a foam roller to
okay.
try to massage out your calves, especially, and your hamstrings and your glutes. That might help.
Yep.
But otherwise, keep at it. I mean, that's good.
So what if the question's about maybe this person might want to try to walk for more than 20 minutes? Like, what's the way to build up on that?
Yep. You could decrease your speed a little bit, or you could go through, once you get to that 15-minute mark, slow down, just for as long as you need. And then once you feel like you might be able to go again, just go when you're ready. And then slowly work to decrease that time of rest. The thing with exercise is it's increasing your exercise is not going to be easy. And that's something that everyone generally needs to be okay with. Just because something's not easy doesn't mean it's not beneficial, and it doesn't mean it's not really helpful. In fact, the best things in life are not free. The best things in life you usually have to work for, right? Like relationships, spiritual discipline. It will be hard at some point, and that's when your mental resilience, starts to get a kick, and you have to push yourself forward. So yeah, I think that's good what they're doing, and just try to work on it, build on it.
Well, except for the gospel of Jesus Christ, that's free.
That is free.
Yeah.
And if you would like to know more,
come to Ridley. Oh well, no. If that's come to Ridley if you want to train to be for.
Before your next question, sorry if my answers are a little bit vague. It is kind of hard to, if I don't have you in front of me and know some specific things about who you are, what you're doing, your health status and stuff like that, it can be a little bit hard to answer questions specifically.
Cool. So, let's see. There's one from Kyle. I think we from Kyle Hoskin.
Hey, Kyle.
I think we did address his question, but maybe you could probably
clarify. Read it to me anyway.
So he asks, what is it about our bodies that makes working our muscles so good for it?
Oh, this is a really scientific question. Oh man. Um,
So what's so good about building muscles?
yeah. Well, first of all, if you want to lose weight, the most effective way to do that is to build muscle in your body.
Hmm.
One of those reasons is the whiteboard's back.
Good old whiteboard.
Yeah, good. What is that? We good?
Yeah.
Yep.
We
Cool. Oh no, we didn't bring a. You know what? We don't need the whiteboard. I didn't bring a wiper. So if you have your bicep, you have your muscles are basically made of tiny muscle fibers, and for each muscle fiber that you grow, that will need more energy, so it will start to burn more fat to use as energy to maintain itself. So basically, that's one of the greatest things about moving your muscles, is that you build muscle and therefore you burn more energy. You're less lethargic. You're actually burning the food that you're eating. The other, oh my goodness, there's so many. It's good for your joints, because the thing that your muscles do is they protect your bones and your joints, and they make movement easier. So if you want to have more energy during the day, you want to protect yourself against injury, you want to be moving your muscles, you want to be building them to protect yourself. There's also a lot of chemical stuff that I would have to actually think about if I was to answer with integrity.
Sure, yeah.
But your hormones and the chemicals in your brain really benefit from anaerobic activity, which is weightlifting or sprinting.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I guess in a way you could say best defense is a good offense. Like to prevent injury is like one way to prevent injury.
Yes.
Is to build on your muscles.
Prehab, which is prehabilitation, is so much better than rehabilitation. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Here's one from Linda Pollard, a Ridley student. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
How does injury impact exercise? So we touched on the psychological impact.
Yeah, guys, you got to start being more specific with your questions. In multiple ways, obviously, what I said before about.
Well, so let's, because we touched on the psychological previously. Maybe let's just touch on the physicality of it. Like, how does that impact, your future exercise or that sort of thing?
Injuries, if they're not rehabilitated properly, then they have the potential to be lifelong injuries. They can, for instance, if you get a hip injury, it might affect your gait, or an ankle injury even, and you don't rehabilitate it properly. It might affect your walking gait, which will affect your joints, which will affect your back muscles. If you get injured in one part of your body, it affects your entire body. There's something in the Bible about that, the body of Christ. Yeah. If one member of the body hurts, the whole body hurts.
Yeah.
And it impacts exercise because you might think not only is, things are being thrown out of whack and that body part is sore when you exercise, but it also changes the way your body is going to try to protect itself, right? So it will tense up around that area. The muscles will tense up to try and protect it.
Yeah.
And that tension will lead to a change in the way you move. Also in a change in the way your body responds to exercise.
Yeah.
So it can actually, if you get injured in a little area like your ankle and you don't fix it properly, you can end up injuring your knees, your hips, your back, your shoulders. And I'm not exaggerating. Like it's.
Well, so I'm going to put my dad on the spot again. So my dad, he had I think like an ankle injury or something like that a few years ago, and I think he sort of did address it to some degree, but I don't think he fully addressed it. And the way he found out that he didn't fully address it was when he went to take a passport photo, and the guy just basically sorry, he actually went to the clinic and he took a photo at the GP clinic, and the GP said to him, it's very obvious that he can't actually keep his head straight. His neck actually compensated because he kept tilting his head like that, and it apparently was linked to his muscle group all the way down to his feet. But he didn't realize it because the body had compensated for that injury.
Yep.
So I guess that's how much injury actually impacts.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more questions. This one's coming from, I assume, a family member, Steph McDonald.
Hey, Seth.
He's
Thanks for coming.
He's got a question. He's asking, what does the New Testament say about exercise?
Oh my goodness. He would, wouldn't he? Thank you.
That's a fair enough question.
Thank you, brother. Not much. I know, because I had a passage war with the lecturer when he tried to belittle physical exercise, and there was not much to go on. Like I said, well, there are a lot of analogies, right? So Paul draws often on analogies of physical discipline and physical exercises, the concept of a race, a competition. And you can't really get that, you can't really understand the emotions that he's trying to draw out if you don't know what it's like to be physically disciplined and to be an athlete.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an athlete, but to control your body.
Yeah.
And to master it. There is a passage in Timothy where Paul does promote physical exercise, just not as much as spiritual exercise. So do both. And in Hebrews, there's a lot of talk about endurance. So obviously the author of Hebrews is talking about endurance of faith. But again, he employs a lot of metaphors and analogies of physical competition, physical suffering, physical endurance. And you are not going to be able to understand how hard it is, and especially in this time of lockdown, when we can't meet in churches, it's a strain on us spiritually, it's a strain on the community. And if you don't know what it's like to endure physically through something, it's going to be a lot harder to convince yourself to endure something spiritually or mentally.
Okay. Good answer. Here we go. There's one good question. I'm trying to leave it for the last. So we'll take 2 more questions. So this is the second last one, and I think we'll call it a night. So this one comes from Mike Cutter. Who should you consult to assist with healing from exercise injuries?
Ooh.
In 30 seconds.
Okay. It's just people have. I'm biased against. Okay, I'm biased against chiropractors, right? Because there are a lot of quacks. Okay. However, my favorite person in exercise rehabilitation is a chiropractor, right? And he knows what he's doing. So that's an example of, it's not really about which discipline you choose, physiotherapy, osteotherapy, or chiropractic. Or Chinese medicine is also they do great with injuries. Chinese medicine, don't mock
so
it till you try it.
Acupuncture, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Even that sludge stuff they get you to drink, it's amazing. But yeah, so it's not necessarily about which one you choose and about who it is you're seeing. If they want you to come back constantly, they're not great. If they're not,
really?
if they're not implementing, if they don't give you a plan of how they're going to address this, and if they're only doing physical manipulation, those are probably alarm bells for me in terms of this guy doesn't really, either he doesn't know what he's doing or he's not really serious about getting me back from.
Because he just wants your business.
Yeah,
He or she just wants your business.
So it took me, I got injured when I was 16. It took me 4 to 6 years to find the right people to actually recover from that back injury, but it was worth it. So
that's very good advice. Okay. So last question from Sarah Butler. Great presentation, Steph. Woohoo! Super helpful. Are there any workout apps or websites you would recommend as being good tools, resources for us to use during lockdown?
Yes. The thing there, yes. So workout apps, Instagram stars like Kayla, it seems that girl who does dance moves and stuff on Instagram. They're great for motivating you and for giving you simple activities to do at home when you don't have equipment. The thing is, they're not individualized, so don't expect to get your specific goals tailored to through those. But there is a Facebook page called Core Advantage. They're actually they're a gym, but they're like a specialist gym. They deal with athletes. They have a great Facebook page. They do podcasts, and they have a lot to do with how to understand your body in exercise, not just how to exercise. So they're kind of more about understanding your body, probably more for people who are a little bit more used to exercising. Kayla It Seems, I think that's her name, on Instagram, people like that, or yoga groups or Pilates groups that you can get videos from. Follow them. I'm sorry, I'm a personal trainer, so I deal with the prescribing, not the finding information part. But generally workout gym pages like Doherty's or something like that, they will generally have a blog that you can check out. There are some weightlifting pages that will have blogs about, what to do, what not to do.
Do you know anyone who, like any personal trainer who does Zoom classes? Because that's a thing that's been happening recently, right? With some gyms.
There would be. Not that... I don't want to be snobby in my profession, but generally speaking, personal trainers who are worth the money that you will spend on them will not do online classes.
Why not?
Just because it's not ideal. It's not.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a one-on-one Zoom class, that's fine. That's a little bit different. I don't know anyone who does that personally.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. I'd be up for it if I wasn't studying theology. Don't ask me, because I'm very busy with essays and theology. But yeah, you'd be able to find the right people. If you message me on Facebook or email, I can probably find some personal trainers who are willing to do that with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Some industry insight information. Thanks so much, Steph. I think I certainly learned a lot from you tonight.
Thank you for having me. It was really good to talk about.
Oh, it was great. It was great.
Exercise.
Yeah. I hope this webinar has helped all of you in where you're at, whether you're in Victoria in lockdown like we are, or enjoying a bit more freedom in the other states. If you got more questions for Steph, feel free to email me and I'll pass it on to her, and we'll try and answer those questions some way or other.
And if you want an 80s style aerobic exercise tape, I will get Wayne in tights and leg warmers. We can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Will's on board. He's nodding.
Moving on. So this webinar has been recorded, and we will make it available most likely in the next week or a fortnight. So if you want to watch a replay, it will be available on our website or our COVID-19 web page, subpage that you can find at www.ridley.edu.au. Once again, thank you for joining in on this Ridley webinar. Stay safe where you are, and go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
In the name of Christ. I'm so Anglican now. Bye, guys.
See you.